Joining us for more on the issues facing millennials here on the Suncoast is entrepreneur Tony Marchuk, the CEO of 22 Marketing House, Raymar Tirado, founder of Sarasota Underground, an online publication that gives voice to millennial residents, and Shannon Fortner, president of the Harvey Milk Festival. She also organizes Ringling Underground. Thanks for being here. Keep on. What is with all this underground stuff? I mean, we don't have basements.
It's just a growing community of people that feel like there's just a movement of, I guess you could say, millennials trying to establish their place and claim a spot in Sarasota. And so, yeah, I think it's just part of the momentum.
There are a couple of different angles to Kate's story. One is the affordability of the area. The other, it seems to me, is there enough socially for millennials around here? And then there are issues in terms of the greater community. I want to get to all of those issues, but first, why don't we start with the affordability of the issue? What was interesting in Kate's story is she interviewed a young woman who used to live in San Francisco, which is, I mean, if we think that Sarasota is unaffordable, I mean, I have family in San Francisco. I've known it for years. I mean, so, but San Francisco seems to be a mecca for young people. Then why is Sarasota such an obstacle in terms of affordability?
Yeah, it's definitely, I think, the nightlife. Like, it's got to have a lot more to, I mean, to inspire young people, to like bring them together, have.
Back to the affordability. I think San Francisco is a very young, progressive, hip city, right? And so it has to do from the underlying culture, whereas Sarasota is more of a retirement. It's been, the average age, I think, is like 53 in this town, and so you just have kind of a different culture that affects politics, that affects the decisions that are made, that kind of affects the whole gamut.
I want to get to all those things, but why don't we start with what you're talking about? Are you saying because San Francisco has so much more to offer, young people would be more willing to have 5 different roommates than...
Be willing to make more sacrifices to be there.
Right? Yes, it's true. If they had things to do, a nightlife and events to attend and be a part of a community, I think they're willing to make that sacrifice to have 5 roommates, per se.
So, Kate also interviewed a young woman who was born and raised here, and generally in our area, not just Sarasota, but also the greater Tampa Bay area, it's long been talked about that young people, they get through high school, they get their college degrees, and they are out of here. Yeah. So on a larger level, do you see any efforts from our community or our government to try to attract young people to stay here and build the community that you're seeking?
I think we're finally starting to see some of that, but the truth is that young people want to move away from where they grew up from, no matter where they are, right? So no matter where you go to, if you find somebody who grew up and lived in a town, there's part of that mentality that says, I just want to go, I want to get away from my family, I want to get away from everything I know, I want to experience something new. And so that's a pretty common thing, and so that's never going to leave as far as a reason for people to want to go. But I think we're just finally starting to see the conversation shift to a point where we're talking about some of the real issues, the affordability, the nightlife, the kind of culture in general that is really at the base of this issue.
Well, when I think about it, I mean, we're known here on the Suncoast for the incredible beaches and the climate. So why wouldn't Sarasota be a mecca to young people who want to enjoy the outside life and create the nightlife that you're talking about? I mean, you're all entrepreneurs in different ways. Where are the young people who are starting clubs and restaurants and so forth to cater to your generation?
Yeah. I think it's nice. I just want to say, I think it's nice to have something like Sarasota Underground that lets me feel like I can actually make an impact, because like without it, I wouldn't like know what's going on, or feel like I could actually make a change.
Right, right. We're just scratching the surface. So why don't we just take a quick break, because there's so much more to discuss. When we come back, we'll have your complete Suncoast weather forecast. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, we're discussing ways to keep millennial residents right here on the Suncoast, and our guests tonight include Tony Marchuk, the CEO of 22 Marketing House, Raymar Tirado, the founder of the Sarasota Underground, and Shannon Fortner, president of the Harvey Milk Festival. She also organizes Ringling Underground. Tony, let me start with you, because you own a high-tech company. What are the obstacles in terms of hiring millennials and getting them to stay here?
Yeah, it's rough. It's hard to find like local talent that's in the tech field. There's a lot of creatives, because of Ringling and all that stuff, but actual, more tech-minded, it's tough. And I don't think we give them a reason to come here. Like Austin, for example, it's hot.
Austin, Texas.
Yeah, exactly. It's hot and it's humid, but they have like a music scene and they have tech conferences and all this stuff.
Well, you got here somehow.
Yeah.
Why? How?
Well, I'm actually from Portland, which is a great city. But I left Portland because it's an old pond and I wanted something new. And I love the sunshine.
There's all saying actually in the television industry is that in Florida they pay you in sunshine.
Yeah.
So
I mean, crap.
Yes, but I mean, if you're trying to attract young people to live in a place where, I mean, if you're an outdoors person and you like the beach, I mean, is there any kind of coordinated marketing campaign to get young people to move here to work in businesses like yours?
There's really, honestly, not that much to do outdoors here compared to other places. I mean, there's the beach, and there's Mayaca. I mean, there's not really any hiking. There's no mountains, lakes, that kind of thing.
So you came here just to try something different?
Yeah, exactly. I landed here.
Okay. Shannon, you are doing your best to create a social scene in Sarasota for millennials. How successful is it, and what are the obstacles to doing more?
Well, recently, so the Harvey Milk Festival, we just held our 7th annual Harvey Milk Festival back in mid-May. And we just recently added the Fabulous Independent Film Festival, which is happening this weekend. So I'm trying to create a lot of events and expanding programming, and definitely feel the support from our community. And actually, the city has been very supportive of the festival being downtown up to as of recent.
What do you mean by that?
Recently, over the past few years, particularly this last year, with the change of commissioners, it seems that one particularly is focused on not having events, and that would be Susan Chapman. So as far as millennials having a voice...
Well, what do you mean by that? I mean...
Okay, so basically they just recently have Thunder by the Bay is now Thunder by the Ranch. And also the Chalk Festival is now in Venice. So they're not wanting to have large events that have large draws to still continue to be in downtown.
So are you saying that Sarasota City Commissioners are being influenced by maybe older residents around here who don't want that kind of scene downtown?
Particularly the condo owners, yeah, particularly, yeah. And this is something that is, it's not something new. I mean, I'm a musician for the past 15 years in this town. And it's something that we've fought with the noise ordinance. I mean, there's always restrictions on having a nightlife and having it be accessible to have a downtown, that it can keep growing.
Well, it brings up an interesting question because, as Kate reported in her story, what's really cool for millennials in our area is that you could have Fortune 500 CEOs who are all too willing to provide their experience to young people starting businesses around here. And boy, that is just such an advantage to young people. But in some ways, is the community, I mean, they love what they love down here, and they don't want to hear the loud music at night or the people of a certain age walking down the street. Is that what we're talking about here?
I think that's only part of it, and not even that big a part of it, but it just seems like they've got a tight lock on some of the things that take place, including city politics. Just the fact that the city election is in March, and not too many people know about it. It just goes under the radar.
We've only talked about that a couple of times.
Yeah, and it just seems like every time they get a chance to overstep their reach as a city council, they do. They tried to regulate Uber out of the city snapped them back, and that was due to a lot of millennials coming together and saying, hey, we're not going to have that. This is a really cool tool. We need to have it in Sarasota. Issues like Harvey Van Groff's affordable housing development that they tried to shut down until Harvey literally walked out of city council. Places like the Cascanale, who had to go through the gauntlet to try to get approval to open up a nice establishment downtown, right? This is not a grungy bar. This is not another dive spot, live club, et cetera. This was like a high-class establishment that was catering towards a younger demographic. And so you asked before the break, where are the young people trying to build these businesses? And they're there. The problem is that the city has taken a very strong hand on regulation against things like that might open up some of those venues that would allow Sarasota to become more millennial friendly.
I think we're talking about something that's not generally known to the public that is watching this tonight, that these are the impediments and the obstacles that really, if you're talking about attracting new businesses and new people to our area, you know, I would imagine that the community wants to attract people, not push them away. And if you're talking about, you know, problems with the city council, or the city commission, I would imagine that the answer would be then change it.
Yeah.
Come out and vote.
And that's the biggest
thing. It doesn't
thing.
matter if it's in March or in November.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is the biggest thing, is that our demographic and millennials as a whole, whether it be here in Sarasota or nationwide, are not voting. They're not engaged in politics. Yeah, they love the national election that comes in November, but when it comes to any city elections, when it comes to county commission, they have no idea and they don't go out and vote.
I would hate to say this, but that's on you.
Yeah, that's on us. That's absolutely on us. That's on all three of us, anybody who lives in the city. I mean, it is our responsibility. We showed out at like a less than 6% in this last city election. If we came out at 12, 15, 13, 14%, we could do whatever we wanted in this town. This town is absolutely up for grabs, and this idea that it's controlled by a small group of people that, you know, retired here at one point and want to maintain this death grip on what it's supposed to be is ridiculous.
So you're all saying that that is the issue more than the fact that this is known as an older, whiter, conservative community, and that's why young people are not moving to the area?
Yeah, particularly it's people speaking out and using their voice, and voting is the easiest solution to all of this.
Yeah.
But I've created so many events in this town, Ringling Underground, super focused on millennials. You know, students get in for free. It's something the Ringling Museum started in order to bring people, younger people, into the museum. You know, we have several events that take place in our town, and a lot of people aren't familiar with that they're even happening because they're so disconnected, and especially college students don't even leave the campuses a lot of times.
Well, within our area or even in the state, are there communities in the Tampa Bay area and around Florida that are doing it better?
St. Pete.
Manatee County?
Manatee County.
Manatee is bringing it right now.
Well, let's talk about that first. Manatee, what's going on in Manatee?
They just did a revision on the noise ordinance up there, and they have a music scene up there, and they by far will be the next Austin before Sarasota could possibly be.
St. Pete.
Well, we can't step away from what's going on in our sister city, right, just north of the border here, because the city is working with the county, which is working with the Manatee Millennial Movement, which is working with the Manatee Young Professionals, which is working with Realize Bradenton, and so it's a larger collaboration, whereas in Sarasota you have these segmentations of these power structures that seem to only want to own their own thing, right, and so there's less collaboration going on, and it would be really interesting just for some of the leaders in this town to look up to Bradenton, you know, and see what they're doing up there to try to bring some of that down here.
Tony, as a business owner, have you and others taken or had an opportunity to talk to the city commission or the county commission and saying, hey, listen, we want to make Sarasota more inviting for millennials and the next generation? Have you tried to do that? If so, what kind of response have you gotten?
No, I haven't, and that's a fault on my end. I do look to get more involved with the city, the politics, you know, and what's going on.
There is I've seen it because we've showed up to support some of the recent issues. I mentioned a few of those issues at City Hall, and when the pressure is applied, they are listening. They want to hear. The problem is that we don't consistently show up, right? And so we only show up when there's this big uprising of something that happens, and typically that's too late. Right, so we're not involved in the ongoing nature and that ongoing conversation. We're not talking with the commissioners on a one-on-one basis, and so since we don't have that format, we don't really have our voices.
So now we need to. Now we know what we need to do.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks a lot. We'll have to take a quick break, but when we return, we'll have final thoughts as well as comments from our viewers. Welcome back. So how do we keep millennials from leaving our Suncoast? That's what we're discussing with our roundtable, and they join us now for final thoughts. What do you want people who are watching this tonight to get out of this? You know, assuming that it's not just millennials watching this, but, you know, retirees who have come down here who really do think of Sarasota as their paradise.
It's not a zero-sum game. There's room for all. It's not this idea of old versus young. It's about finding interesting ways to build that community where we can both feel at home and feel like it's ours. To the young people who are watching this, just know that there's a lot of us out here. There are people that are feeling and understanding your pain. And it's all about us coming together, get in front of the city, get in front of the county commission, get involved with local groups, the young professionals, the Chamber of Commerce, et cetera. Find a way to plug in to your local community, and let's do what we need to do, which is amplify that voice.
And Tony, what's fascinating here is, I mean, you're a business owner here in town, but what you're getting out of this is a sense that you've got to do something yourself.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I feel like I can be kind of like representative of the millennials that aren't doing anything, you know, and I actually learned something today, and I'm actually going to do something to solve this problem that I have with my business. So, yeah, right. It's getting involved.
Well, you know, maybe you need to get more involved, but that, you know, starting your own business is something, especially at something in your age. Shannon, you talked about a lot of the obstacles, but still you've done a terrific job in terms of creating some really great events and things that people could go to and entertain themselves.
Thank you. And I'm actually working on trying to resolve and kind of create more of a music venue here in Sarasota, and trying to start a triplex, which would be theater, film, and music. So I can bring like traveling theater companies through and do a lot more. So also the Harvey Milk Festival is always looking for other people to get involved. Like I said, we're expanding programming, and that means more events and things for the community to gather and be a part of. So.
And I'm sure you're hoping that certain members of the City Commission were watching tonight.
Yes.
We'll send it to them on Facebook or something.
Okay.
And I'll be calling you.
Tag them on Twitter.
I'll be calling you.
Well, thank you all very much. But before we go, we want to share with our viewers some of what people are saying about last night's show. Red tide has returned to the Suncoast with a vengeance. The algae is killing thousands of fish and causing respiratory problems for beachgoers. And we asked you how you have been impacted by red tide. And here's what our viewers are saying. Bill Sullivan writes, I have never seen that many dead fish as I did on Venice Beach yesterday. Fishing will take a long time to come back. Sad. Jenny Duffy writes, Longboat Key government's response to the red tide problem is spot on. Sarasota residents aren't so lucky. We spent several hours last Friday trying to reach someone at the city who could address the red tide here. And Ron Greenberg writes, there is no cure or way to stop it. It is a bloom. There is no science that ties it to runoff. We have had major fish kills before. Well, if you'd like to join the conversation about tonight's topic, just join our Facebook page at facebook.com/news@7. I want to thank our guests for being here tonight. Tony Marchuk is CEO of 22 Marketing House. Raymar Tirado is the co-founder of the Sarasota Underground, and Shannon Fortner is the president of the Harvey Milk Festival. She also organizes Ringling Underground. So stay tuned for our last check on weather, plus a look at what is making headlines at this hour.